thank you for the work that you've been doing for deported veterans over the years, the numerous bills that you put up there that unfortunately didn't get out of subcommittee, but you finally got this one, 7946, out of committee. My question is, what do you think is going to be what do you think was the catalyst for this bill to finally make it out of subcommittee and get to the floor? And the other thing is, what do you think we need to do to make sure this bill passed so that we bring back all these deported veterans that have been deported all around the world?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for that. And I want to just explain to the people here what this gentleman is talking about. You know that we have many, many people. It's been a long-standing tradition of our country that non-citizens of our country volunteer and serve in our military. Virtually all of them that I know. I can't think of any. I haven't really seen a case where, at least in an organized way, undocumented people serve in our military. So everybody who serves in our military has some form of documentation. They are a green card holder. They're under some sort of legal visa. And during times of conflict, if you serve in our country, serve in our military, you have a right to become a citizen. The problem is a lot of people who sign up under those conditions think that the oath they took of allegiance to our country is, oh, that must have made me a citizen. Or they exit the military without ever completing the process to become a citizen. So just by being a service member, that doesn't automatically make you a citizen. So we have a lot of cases in which people, service members, have finished their service, they leave, and they face struggles like any other service member who might be a citizen. They might have alcohol and drug problems. They may get into a bar fight someplace. They may get involved in a DUI. And that trouble with the law often leads to their deportation, which seems to be an extreme thing to do. Actually, it's a shameful thing that we do to people who have worn the uniform of the United States and who often have served in combat. It's just plain wrong. And so, and this is, by the way, this is not something that any one particular president has done. I'm not blaming any particular president. It's happened under Democratic and Republican presidents. It has something to do with the lack of mechanisms within our Department of Defense to pay attention to this cohort of people, cohort of service members, to make sure that they fill out their paperwork, go through the process of becoming a citizen. ICE and our immigration officials don't do their due diligence and ask everybody who they detain, have you been a member of the U.S. Armed Forces? They don't ask that question. They don't determine it. Congressman Vargas and I sent a letter to USCIS and ICE. Actually, we asked the GAO, the GAO, to come up with an accounting of how many people have we deported, how many service members have we deported, and they couldn't answer the question because the agencies whose own policies say that they need to ask that question, have you served in the armed forces, U.S. Armed Forces, that they haven't done it on a regular basis. So I have sponsored legislation, I'm the lead sponsor as chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, to get the Department of Defense to be more proactive at getting these service members their citizenship, at getting the proper screening by immigration officials before they, as they enter into deportation proceedings. And look, admittedly, some veterans have done some very, very bad things, and I can't justify that we just blanket say, okay, everybody who's been deported gets a free ticket back automatically. There's some people who've done some very, very bad things, and I don't think politically we can say that they should come back. but there's an awful lot of veterans out there who made mistakes. And we need to ask the question, is their mistake so big that they should be banished from our country? And I would say to you the answer is no. That is far too harsh and it's unjust. And in many cases, they're heroes. Why, I'm going to tell you, the American Legion, I want to get this straight. I believe it's the American Legion, has signed on, and I think the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, has also endorsed this legislation. It is a careful balance of what I think has caused us to get success. Your question is why we're succeeding in getting it out of a House committee. It was very contentious, very divided. Unfortunately, our country is very divided on the issue of immigration. But I don't see this as an immigration issue. I see this as a veterans issue. It's about honoring the people who served our country. And they deserve to come back to our country. And you know what? I credit the Veteran Service Organization's endorsements as part of the moral standing of this bill. So you who belong to VFW Post and the American Legion Post and Disabled American Veterans and any number of veterans organizations, your advocacy is making a huge difference. It's what made the difference in the PACT Act, quite frankly. I mean, we didn't have a trouble getting past the 60-vote supermajority requirement in the Senate because once we passed it out of the House with 34 Republican votes, 34 Republicans voted with us. It should have been unanimous, by the way, I think. It should have been a unanimous vote. Really, it should have been unanimous. It was the call to a moral conscience that the veteran service organizations presented that I think really weighed on senators' minds, right? And I think the same thing has to happen with our deported veterans and say, look, don't be afraid that it's going to be linked to the immigration division in our country. Focus on the fact that these were service members, and if anybody deserves a second chance, it's our veterans. So.
All right, thank you again. For the last year and a half, I've traveled across this country to Kansas, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, New Mexico, Colorado, and black, white, whatever religion, whatever your voting stance, up to a man and a woman, they felt that this was wrong about deported veterans and that the veterans should have their citizenship. I say that to qualify before I go forward, is that in my research, I found not one Republican leader having submitted a bill or co-sponsored a bill to help change this situation. My question to you, especially when you have heavy hitters like Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, Dick Durbin, Cory Booker, Dianne Feinstein, Senator Padilla, Chuy Garcia, Grijalva, Vargas, Campos, and even AOC, but we're not hearing that publicly. What can be done to bring the Republican leadership, not the Republican people, because they are already with it, Republican leadership to get involved to helping this situation get changed?
I see two things that need to be done. Two things that need to be done. We have to find a way to lower the temperature over the feelings on immigration, the immigration issue. Right? There's a lot of division in our country over immigration. And I like to remind people that one of the people who did a lot for immigrants was Ronald Reagan, right? He signed a bill, it was basically an amnesty bill, and recognized that immigrants make a contribution, an invaluable contribution to our country. So we need to have those conversations in our community which don't stoke up resentment and blame immigrants for and stigmatize immigrants for the problems. I mean, recognize that immigrants have always been a part of our national story. Yes, we have a duty to manage immigration, to manage our borders, but part of part of what's stopping justice for deported veterans is the fear. I think the fear of many Republican leaders, of Republican leaders in general, that they're going to face an opponent who's going to say they're soft on immigration, that you're giving a free pass to criminals, and there's all going to be sorts of unfair ways in which their stance is going to be mischaracterized. So, it's going to take some political courage for the Republican leaders that you're mentioning. I believe they're there. I would dare to guess that someone like John McCain, if he were alive, oh, well, that's disappointing to hear. So, but anyway, so what do we got? I still say that you have to, I think the veteran service organizations like the American Legion are some of the most powerful voices out there, and I think you got to keep getting more and more Legion posts, get this to be a priority, not just something they endorse, but a priority of these organizations is maybe the next step. Okay? All right. Next.